Thanks for visiting our channel again. There has been only one Jacqueline Bisset among the countless of Hollywood beauty icons. This is the same woman who was previously named Newsweek's most attractive actress. However, she was never wed. Her seductive performance captivated audiences around the globe. However, she hated the situations that made her a symbol of allure. No male was ever able to retain her, even if she stood behind Frank Sinatra, Steve McQueen, and François Truffaut. Then, what is reality? Could it have been a hidden tragedy or a choice? So, what transpired beneath all that glitter? Whatever you believed you knew about Jacqueline Bisset will be challenged by this account. World War II broke out on September 13, 1944, the year that Jacqueline Bisset came into our world. Her life has never been quiet. There were unfixable cracks behind the flawless surface of this rich family, despite the fact that the father was a doctor and the mother a French lawyer. Arlette Alexander was a powerful and bright woman who was her mother. Although tragedy was a major part of her path, a sad turn occurred in her life after she gave up her work to start a family, a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. Jacqueline and her mother were left to fend for themselves after Max Fraser Bisset, the man she had once trusted, deserted the family. Jacqueline saw her mother, who had been brave and self-reliant, abandoned to face the challenges of adulthood on her own, even though she was too young to completely grasp the intricacies of this world. Not only did her father's leaving break her heart, but it also instilled an underlying dread of love and marriage. She had an early realization that women could not find fulfillment in men. The minute they stopped being the perfect object of men's adoration, they would be cast aside since they lacked the means to support themselves professionally and financially. Life for Jacqueline became anything from carefree after that. She spent her formative years alone, during which she should have been full of joy and wonder. As she watched her classmates play, she fretted over how she would provide for her mother financially. Because she had no one to protect her or lead her, she had to mature way too rapidly. She found her sole means of subsistence in modeling. However, she also learned a hard lesson from this line of work. Although physical attractiveness can open doors to fame, it also served as a deadly trap for some. An atmosphere of constant objectification, inspection, and exploitation pervaded the 1960s fashion business. Nobody gave a hoot about Jacqueline's feelings or desires. Instead of seeing a lady with brains and ambition, they saw her pretty face and figure and cast her as a flower. Still, Jacqueline was not going to let herself be written out. Her lifelong goal has always been to make it as a ballet dancer. Reality was harsh, but ballet was the one place she felt like herself, not just another lovely face on a catwalk or magazine cover. Her family's finances had deteriorated, and she couldn't afford to continue her ballet training due to its high cost. She quickly learned that the ballet world was just as cruel since her body did not conform to the rigid norms of the time. It was too tall and too full-figured, in which the genuinely remarkable would emerge victorious and the ordinary would perish. She was unyielding. After being disillusioned with ballet, Jacqueline sought a new way forward that would grant her the independence she yearned for. Hollywood was that road. She decided to attend the Italiacani Academy of Theater Arts, the same institution that had produced some of the most famous actors and actresses from Britain. Unfortunately, her stunning good looks followed her into the performing profession. Her talent went unnoticed. They initially beheld her countenance. Her graceful refinement and captivating charisma were more important than her acting abilities when casting her. Jacqueline was deeply troubled by this realization. Although she yearned for acclaim for her skills, she was realistic about the fact that her good looks were more important to her career prospects. A double-edged sword, her beauty catapulted her to Hollywood at a rate no one had ever predicted. Simply put, the film industry will always remember that you broke in through your good looks. The true cost of fame will soon become clear to Jacqueline. Jacqueline grasped the concept with ease. She was well aware that if she gave in to the pressure to be seen as nothing more than a beauty queen, she would never get the opportunity to showcase her acting chops. Hollywood had already set her up for a golden cage. Could she break free? With 1965's The Knack and How to Get It, Jacqueline made her big screen debut. It wasn't a breakthrough part or even a turning point in her career, but it was her entry into a world full with unexpected pitfalls. Casino Royale, 1967, a parody of the James Bond franchise, gave her a more famous part 2 years later. Yet it was more like a slap in the face than anything that could have propelled her into professional acting. No acting chops were needed for the part of Miss Goodthighs. It was enough for her to possess an awe-inspiring level of beauty to captivate listeners. Everything Jacqueline had hoped for happened during the audition. The director didn't probe for details regarding her background in acting or conduct any kind of performance evaluation. All they did was stare at her. They didn't seem to be evaluating a person with depth and ambition, but rather a costly thing. Everyone was staring at Jacqueline the moment she arrived onto the stage in her little swimsuit. A brief hush fell over the room. Then there were compliments whispered in the wind. However, amidst the wonder, one individual experienced intense discomfort. Yes, Jacqueline. She hoped her legacy would be more than that of a beautiful movie icon. However, there was no other option available to her in Hollywood at that time. She got a flood of offers once the film came out. However, one obvious problem remained. She was inundated with scripts that all had the same requirement. It was essential that her character be attractive. There is no additional information. At that same time, she was faced with a pivotal choice. She could either give up and become just another movie siren, or she could struggle for recognition of her true talent. Then, in 1967, a chance opportunity knocked on the door. Two for the Road starred Jacqueline opposite the legendary Audrey Hepburn, widely regarded as one of the greatest actors of all time. Nuanced and emotionally charged performances were required for the romance drama. As soon as Jacqueline set foot on the set, she could sense a change. Her life took a dramatic turn when she finally felt like an actress. Rather than only playing the role, Jacqueline immersed herself in it. Gone were the days of shooting scenes that served solely to highlight her figure in skimpy bikinis. As an alternative, she finally had the opportunity she had been craving to show her fragility, anguish, and the emotional upheaval of her character. It was a hit with the audience. Critics began praising her for her nuanced, emotionally charged performances rather than her stunning good features. Above all else, Jacqueline had discovered her artistic voice in the film industry. She realized then that she could and would have to struggle for recognition as a professional actress. The Detective, a 1968 picture starring Frank Sinatra, was her second big break. However, she was already aware of the cautions before she set foot on the set. Not easy to sing Sinatra. Sinatra has command. Working with fresh actors is something Sinatra dislikes. Jacqueline ignored the whispers, faced problems head-on, and yearned, above all else, to gain wisdom from a living legend. What caught her off guard, though, was that Frank Sinatra was completely different from the warnings she had received. He was nothing if not easygoing, modest, and nonchalant. Instead, he defended her when she encountered opposition from the screenwriters and even referred to her as the child. As a gesture of gratitude, he presented her with a leather-bound script after filming concluded. Reporters did not squander any time igniting rumors. Were she and Sinatra romantically involved? In the company of a great man, a stunning actress? Something more was required. Because of her lack of talent, nobody thought she belonged there. She was able to progress farther in her job with the detectives. Assistants, despite the rumors. However, her fame was not due to the film. That happened in 1968, when she made an appearance in Bullet, often considered to be the best action picture of all time. The picture demonstrated that Jacqueline could compete with the most famous starring males in Hollywood and solidified Steve McQueen's place in film history. Word on the street was that Jacqueline is little more than a nice face compared to McQueen before it came out. The doubters, however, grew silent once the picture debuted in theaters. In McQueen's picture, she served a purpose beyond that of a mere romantic interest. Her performance was nuanced and compelling, and she played a crucial role in the plot. It was time for Hollywood to view her in a new way. By 1974, Jacqueline had joined an all-star cast in the crime thriller Murder on the Orient Express. Jacqueline Bisset was finally acknowledged by Hollywood as an actress whose talent extended beyond her physical attractiveness at this point. A genuine Hollywood celebrity, she was. The allure of Hollywood attracted Jacqueline Bisset. But that alone would have been enough to ensure her oblivion, just as it did for many other actresses. She had to disprove the world's assumptions about her acting chops if she wanted to stay alive. But Hollywood wasn't prepared to release it so readily. It further commercialized her appearance, elevating her to the status of the pinnacle of sex symbols. Of the 1970s, an era for which she had no enthusiasm. And it all came to a head in 1977 with The Deep. If Jacqueline had joined The Deep, she would have thought she was taking part in an exciting undersea expedition rather than a superficially appealing marketing effort. However, Hollywood had different intentions. She had a feeling something wasn't right from the start of filming. Her figure in a white bikini was the unrelenting subject of the camera's attention, photographing her attractiveness in close-ups that were not intended to emphasize the character. But it wasn't until the picture was in cinemas that Jacqueline truly understood. A picture of her with a wet white t-shirt clinging to her figure became an unforgettable scene in cinematic history. The fact that she was completely unaware that this moment would serve as the centerpiece of the entire film's marketing campaign only made matters worse. At first, the director and producers had reassured her that the attire was simply ordinary diving gear, fitting for the character. They clarified that the intention was not to be offensive, but rather to present female divers in a realistic light. But after the film came out, she saw that the story wasn't at all what it seemed. Neither an action scene nor a dramatic moment were depicted on the film's promotional poster. She was the only one in that damp t-shirt, in the same way that it was the film's true star. People were more interested in her look than the film's plot, and the media couldn't stop gushing about it. Wet t-shirt contests and events all over the world began as a result of that one scenario, which unintentionally started the craze. When individuals started to wonder if it had all been premeditated, the discussion heated up. The scene wasn't as coincidental as Jacqueline thought, according to several reviewers. They thought the filmmakers knew just how the delicate cloth would turn see-through when submerged in water, but they purposefully kept that knowledge from her so they could capitalize on her appearance. Producer Peter Guber of The Deep even went so far as to say, "That t-shirt made me a rich man," adding fuel to the fire of the notion that it was all a marketing hoax. Jacqueline was tricked. Years later, she confessed that she was so startled by the moment that she wanted to cry when she watched it in theaters. She had never intended to become an uncontrollable sex symbol, but with that one exploited scene, she became one. Her entire accomplishment was in jeopardy of being turned into a meaningless PR spectacle. Even though she was unhappy with the way the film portrayed her, The Deep was a huge success. Not in the way she had imagined, but it did make her famous all over the world. Hollywood would keep casting her in roles that were superficially related to her beauty as long as she remained trapped in this image. She was also aware that she required a role that would change Hollywood's perception of her and her career. With the release of Rich and Famous in 1981, that chance came. Rich and Famous was Jacqueline's redemption after years of being dismissed as simply another film beauty. A significant drama unfolded as two women engaged in a wit and emotional struggle over friendship, passion, and treachery. At last, Jacqueline had a part that mattered. She was no longer an afterthought. An emotionally nuanced character who called a nuanced performance. She was the character, not simply a performer. Upon the film's initial debut, the press praised Jacqueline Bisset for two reasons that were significantly more important than simply her allure. Actress with talent. She had waited her whole career for this moment. She demonstrated that attractiveness may lead to stardom, but that talent was the key to a long and fruitful life. In 1987, Jacqueline tackled even another difficulty with the love story Napoleon and Josephine, continuing her quest of artistic integrity. There was more going on here than meets the eye. It was a chance for her to demonstrate her acting maturity. Josephine, the strong lady who stood by Napoleon Bonaparte, was a role that called for grace, profundity of passion, and enthralling refinement. Jacqueline was nominated for a Golden Globe for her outstanding performance. Rich and Famous was her way of addressing critics who questioned her modern drama chops, whereas Napoleon and Josephine proved she belonged in any genre. The exceptional films she participated in weren't the only measure of her accomplishment, though. The people she associated with also played a role. Impressive performances weren't the only way Jacqueline demonstrated her talent during her career. Working with some of cinema's all-time greats was another honor for her. Among the illustrious directors who gave her opportunities were François Truffaut, Roman Polanski, John Huston, and George Cukor. Jacqueline would never have been included in such illustrious company if she lacked genuine talent. In addition to that, she had the opportunity to work alongside some of cinema's most legendary actors. The following actors and actresses are part of the cast: Paul Newman, who was long considered the ideal leading man in Hollywood, Anthony Quinn, a golden age giant, Jean-Paul Belmondo, the personification of French cinema, and rising talents like Nick Nolte and Kenneth Branagh. It was impossible to ignore her status in the field. Her standing in the community is solid. One unanswered question, nevertheless, persists. Why hadn't Jacqueline Bisset, who was renowned, wealthy, and stunning, tied the knot? Let's find out what her troubled private life is like in the following chapter. Power couples who are perpetually watched by the paparazzi are common in Hollywood, as are short-lived romances, scandalous splits, and other such relationships. Jacqueline Bisset, however, was an anomaly even in that milieu. There was a lot of curiosity about Jacqueline's decision to live a solitary existence because she never got married, never donned a wedding dress, and never walked down the aisle with any guy. Her reasons were never hidden from Jacqueline. "I'm too independent to get married," she said in an interview once. Marriage was much more than simply love, in her view. It was all about committing, about loving another person despite their imperfections and habits. She was unwilling to give up it, either. Although having a kid strengthens a couple's bond, it is no assurance that they will always be happy. You tend to overlook a person's flaws when you love them. The problem is, once you tie the knot, you're stuck with their habits for the rest of your life. And I doubt I'd be able to pull that off. Jacqueline had many intense relationships, but she never tied the knot. She had relationships that stayed with her, guys who came and went, and problems that never got fully handled. Michael Sarrazin stood head and shoulders above Jacqueline's other partners. Their 6-year cohabitation was the longest of her life's relationships. The actor was Canadian. While both were on the rise in Hollywood in the late 60s, they crossed paths. Jacqueline was enchanted by Sarrazin's wild and free-spirited personality and rugged good looks. After a press event in Paris one summer evening in 1969, they sat together on the hotel's balcony. Her goblet of wine mirrored the golden light as Michael leisurely drew out his cigarette. "Is marriage in our future?" A hint of a smirk curved his lips as he inquired abruptly, as if she had the solution in her head before she even spoke. Jacqueline fixed her dazzling gaze on him. "Although I love you, I am terrified of being tied down and do not believe that marriage is the right choice for me." Michael let out a mirthful laugh, casting his cigarette ash onto the cobblestone pavement. "We can simply remain in this position. Simply two people in love, no paperwork, no rings." But as time went on, she understood that a relationship devoid of commitment could never endure indefinitely. Their love was intense and unpredictable. Jacqueline sacrosanctly protected Sarrazin's autonomy because Sarrazin was not the sort to settle down. They were never able to put their disagreements aside. There was no big split. There were no controversies, no squabbles. Simply a silent acceptance that their union was never destined to endure indefinitely. One of the most influential filmmakers in French cinema history, François Truffaut, drew Jacqueline's insatiable passion of film. His artistic talents weren't the only thing that brought him fame. His intellectual charisma was as captivating. Truffaut told her, "You are a goddess of the screen, but I think you are more than that," during one of their evenings in Cannes. "You are a wild spirit, one that no one can ever own." Those words echoed in her mind for years to come. No one knows exactly why their relationship ended, but perhaps they were both free-spirited artists, neither willing to be bound by love. Truffaut continued making films, while Jacqueline moved on to another love story, this time with a man from the world of ballet. If Sarrazin was a free spirit and Truffaut a refined intellectual, Alexander Godunov was a man of raw passion and drama. A legendary Russian ballet dancer, Godunov embodied the intensity and unpredictability of an artist's soul. One night, after a grand ballet performance in New York, Jacqueline found Godunov sitting alone on the empty stage, his eyes red from vodka. "You know what?" he murmured, his voice unsteady. "The whole world watches me dance, but no one truly understands me." Their relationship lasted for years, but was filled with turmoil. Godunov was prone to intense emotional outbursts, partly due to the pressures of his career and partly due to his inherently volatile nature. Meanwhile, Jacqueline valued peace and stability above all else. They loved each other. They could never truly find harmony. In the end, she walked away continuing her own journey. Though Jacqueline Bisset never married or had biological children, she did take on the role of a stepmother. The men she lived with, such as Michael Sarrazin and Emin Boztepe, had children from previous relationships. While there was no legal bond, Jacqueline spent significant time caring for them as a maternal figure during the years they lived together. She never regretted not having children of her own, but that didn't mean she lacked maternal instincts. She loved the children of the men she was with, yet she also understood that marriage and motherhood were not the paths she was meant to follow. Jacqueline Bisset experienced beautiful love affairs and quiet yet bittersweet breakups, but no matter whom she loved, she never allowed romance to chain her down. She never had a husband, never built a conventional family, but she lived a life of independence and freedom, something very few women in Hollywood could truly maintain. And while she was regarded as one of Hollywood's most elegant actresses, Jacqueline Bisset was not entirely free from controversy. One of the most unforgettable moments, one that sent shockwaves through Hollywood, was at the 2014 Golden Globe Awards. That year, at 69, Jacqueline Bisset won the Best Supporting Actress category for her role in the television series Dancing on the Edge. It was the first Golden Globe win of her career, a moment that should have been a long overdue recognition for a woman who had dedicated decades to the industry. But instead of delivering a powerful emotional speech, the moment became one of the most bizarre award acceptance speeches in Golden Globe history. When her name was announced, Jacqueline walked to the stage visibly emotional, but slightly flustered. As she held the microphone, she paused for several seconds, as if struggling to gather her thoughts. But rather than giving a concise speech, her words became disjointed, hesitant, and unexpectedly long-winded. She repeated her gratitude multiple times, abruptly switched topics, and occasionally paused for uncomfortably long stretches. The camera panned to the audience, capturing a mix of amusement and confusion. Leonardo DiCaprio raised an eyebrow. Julia Roberts forced an awkward smile, and the camera lingered on Bradley Cooper, who tried but failed to mask his bewilderment. The moment the broadcast ended, social media erupted with speculation. People began to ask, had Jacqueline Bisset been drinking before stepping on stage? Twitter was flooded with sarcastic remarks. Jacqueline Bisset is giving a speech, but I'm not sure even she knows what she's saying. That speech is the perfect summary of a drunken 2 a.m. phone call. Can someone turn off the microphone? Now I'm just as confused as she is. The Guardian called it one of the most awkward moments in Golden Globe history, while Time magazine listed it among the weirdest moments in Golden Globe history. But was Jacqueline Bisset actually drunk? The following day, in an interview, she completely denied the rumors, making it difficult to articulate her thoughts. Regardless of the truth, the event became an unforgettable chapter in Jacqueline Bisset's career. It not only gave audiences something to talk about for years, but it also revealed something undeniable. Even a seasoned Hollywood legend could still lose control in the heat of the moment. With decades of dedication, Jacqueline Bisset's legacy is one worth honoring. In the 1980s, when pay disparity between male and female actors was still rampant, she became one of the first actresses to earn over $1 million for a role, an extraordinary figure at the time. This not only proved her worth, but also marked a significant step forward for future actresses in demanding fair compensation. Her recognition extended beyond Hollywood. She was celebrated on a global scale, receiving France's prestigious Légion d'honneur from President Nicolas Sarkozy, an acknowledgement of her contributions to art and culture. Jacqueline was never confined to American cinema. She appeared in films from over 20 different countries, working with some of the world's greatest filmmakers. She wasn't just a movie star. She was a global artist, a woman whose enduring career spanned generations. And while she never married or had children, her influence reached beyond the screen. Jacqueline Bisset is the godmother of Angelina Jolie, and Jolie herself once credited Jacqueline's career as an inspiration, admiring her independence, bold choices, and fearless approach to challenges. At 80 years old, Jacqueline Bisset remains a legend, not because of the men she loved, but because of the path she chose. A path that was unconventional, unrestrained by norms, and most importantly, a path that belonged to Jacqueline Bisset alone. At 80 years old, Jacqueline Bisset has not chosen a quiet life or withdrawn from the entertainment industry. She continues to appear on screen, proving that her passion for cinema has never left her. In 2022, she starred in Lauren and Rose, portraying a seasoned actress with a complex soul, an unmistakable reflection of her own career and life. That same year, she was honored at the Coronado Island Film Festival with the Cultural Icon Award, recognizing her outstanding contributions to cinema over 6 decades. Not only has she maintained her screen presence, but Jacqueline Bisset also continues to embody elegance and timeless sophistication. She has never conformed to Hollywood's obsession with youth, never sought plastic surgery, instead allowing time to sculpt the beauty of a woman who has lived, experienced, and remained free. Beyond her career, she remains active in philanthropy. She dedicates her time to supporting cancer research, child protection, and animal rights, upholding her humanitarian spirit and compassion. For Jacqueline, life is not just about the spotlight. It is also about the legacy she wishes to leave for future generations. However, in February 2025, she unexpectedly stirred controversy with her comments on the Me Too movement. In an interview, she stated that she felt very little sympathy for the movement, arguing that women should be more cautious in their behavior and attire to avoid becoming victims of sexual harassment. She also asserted that throughout her long career, she had never experienced harassment, as she always avoided risky situations and was often protected by her male colleagues. Her remarks immediately sparked mixed reactions. Some criticized her perspective as outdated and lacking empathy for women who had suffered abuse in the industry. Others, however, supported Jacqueline, believing that she was simply sharing her personal experiences from a very different Hollywood era. Regardless of the controversy, Jacqueline Bisset's stance reflects who she has always been: strong, independent, and unafraid to go against the crowd. She has never lived by others' expectations, nor has she ever sought validation from anyone. Jacqueline Bisset chose a life without commitments: no husband, no children, no man who truly held on to her heart. But was that strength, or was it simply loneliness disguised as independence? Did she genuinely never need marriage, or had she simply never found someone worthy? What do you think? Can a woman truly be happy without a family, or is it just a way to rationalize solitude? Could her parents' troubled marriage have been a painful lesson that shaped her choices? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and let us know your perspective. Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss more shocking stories of Hollywood legends. Click on the video on your screen to continue discovering the fascinating lives of the icons you love.